Hey, what's going on, everybody? Boilon here, back with another special guest. Well, the main special guest that usually shows up on the channel. I won't lie. It's usually just one. But hey, Gangsta KT, he's back on the channel again. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm one-on-one special guest. I'm doing great, Boilon. Looking forward to this discussion today, and thanks for having me on again.
So we're here to talk about Cosmic Crucible Season 6, officially in the game now. Well, I guess by the time you watch this, you'll probably have noticed that the defensive rooms have now changed. Spoiler, don't look, but anyways, it's changed. We'll talk about each of the rooms one by one to show you what I'm going to be putting up on defense, some of our thoughts about each of the rooms as well. And I want to use this time to mention to the audience as well that Gangsta KT is leaving us. So he is stepping away from Marvel Star. I'll let him talk about it. He put a video out on his own channel, though, so if you want to go check it out. What do you have to say for yourself, gangster?
Yeah, I have some explaining to do. So, yeah, not to harp on it. Such a phenomenal game. I've played for 6 years. Sure, don't have any hate towards the game, but I've had my head down in this for a long time, and just decided it was time to try something else. So, am stepping away, but have just really enjoyed being on these with you, and appreciated that, and was excited to get one last chance to talk some strategy here before I left.
Maybe you just need Black Knight in your life. Maybe he's going to come out and you're going to be like, oh my God, he's so good that I have to come back.
This changes everything. Yeah, he's going to be amazing.
1 week hiatus. We'll see. The game's always around, though. People do take breaks. Even people in my own alliance have taken breaks and come back. So who knows? But thanks for joining me for today. And are you ready to go?
Let's do it.
And let's boil this down. Okay, so we talked a little bit before the video about what we kind of wanted to do with some of the defenses, get a better idea of the rooms as well. So we'll start off with room number 1. And I think for me, like, there could be other things that you could do with this. But I think, like we said before the video, that there's going to be a few teams that are just kind of staple defenses, right? Like, I just feel that they're the most defensive teams that you're going to want to use, which is, for me, is like Extreme X-Men, Darkhold, and Infinity Watch to some degree of that. Maybe some mix and match here with Darkhold, but they're just like, because of their safeguard and kind of mechanics, like defensive mechanics that they have, like they're just raw defensive teams, right? And so just got to figure out where to put them.
I completely agree. I think there's some tweaks from a new season, but the best teams are still the best teams overall.
Yeah, and so I have now. I might change my ISOs a little, but I'm just wondering, does it matter? So for those of you who have done the matchups against Extreme X-Men over the last month or so, anyway, since they've been out, if you do Superior 6 versus X-Men, a lot of times they don't even take many turns. And so I'm just kind of banking that Gambit does like 300% of the damage. I'm hoping that somebody triggers this low HP, under 50% health, and then Gambit's ping is doing like triple damage, basically, and he kills someone or two. That's what I'm kind of banking on. Do I need to change any of the others to Skirmisher? Or actually, I don't even know if Nightcrawler's going to take a turn. I think he's Skirmisher because I do have him as Raider as well. This is for rating, actually, for those of you who remember my stuff about stars and stuff on Nightcrawler. So that's why he was a Skirmisher. So I'll switch him back to Raider. But how much is this going to matter? I don't know, because they like barely take turns. You're familiar with the Masters of Evil counter, right? Though, so do they take turns then?
Yeah, so with the Masters of Evil counter, it's not the most efficient, at least when I've done it in the power up, punch ups, whatever I'm doing. But they do take turns. Like Nightcrawler is usually the last one to survive, and we'll get in a few turns. But it is fairly straightforward, not the most efficient.
Does Rogue or Forge take turns in that matchup? Because I'm like, maybe I should also change them off of that. But I do like, obviously, for rating purposes, Forge as striker. So I'm just wondering, like, should I spend the ions to change? I do have Skirmisher actually for Rogue, but is it going to make a difference? Like, does she take a turn?
Not really. She gets the auto taunt. I know there's an
Yeah.
ability block on Forge, usually the way that matchup's played. So even if he does get a turn, it's his basic.
Yeah.
So I don't think you have too much to worry about there.
So it's just like, I'm not even the problem, and this was the same with season 5 with room 1, was that we were spending so many more ions changing everyone to striker, right? like I think I added so many extra strikers that I never needed before, because when I was doing the counters, like all these characters needed a striker for the assists. And I don't want this to be the case for this room here, where now I'm just having to like add some other ISO that I'm not normally using. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And putting, blue 5 on 2 or 3 different traits for the same guy was kinda tough, but it's Crucible. You want him
Yeah.
as strong as you can.
But I think in this instance, I think it's like honestly, I think it's like 90% Gambit. Like I think Gambit is the MVP of this team, at least in Crucible, just because of the way that the passive just keeps going and going. So I'm gonna hope for the best, and maybe it might do a little bit. It might be a little bit stronger than last season, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess. Any other thoughts on who else? I mean, Raider and Skirmisher is just like Darkhold is usually full of like a degree of strikers, right? And I don't. You could use Infinity Watch. Oh wait, no, that's Striker too. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's one skirmisher and everyone else is Striker. So I mean, again, I don't really know like if there's any other good version of teams that would fit this room for me. I think this is probably the best that I can think of. Do you have
Yeah,
any
I
other
I
teams that
agree,
you
and I
would?
think I think your positioning to Gambit 2 is really good, knowing Rogue will get that
Uh,
auto taunt and then to leverage that 50% health, that could be
So
great.
I actually want Gambit to get hit. And that's why I put him next
Yep.
to Rogue, because I want any additional AoEs. And I wanted to separate him from Forge. Because if you have ever played the Vulture offensive Superior 6 version, normally you try to get your special and hit like 3 targets. Usually you want to try to hit Gambit because that also gives the offense down to Gambit. And if you can get Forge at the same time, that's great. Because at least in the previous season, there was some stealth mechanics which you had to knock people out of, things like that. So I'm going to go with this and try to separate Forge from Gambit so that if someone goes down the middle, for example, with Vulture, it's not going to hit Forge. I don't know. That's just my thoughts there, but who knows what's going to
Yeah,
actually happen. We'll
I think that's
see.
smart.
We'll see. So I guess we'll have to wait for the replays, I guess, on that one. Otherwise, I think, yeah, I can't think of anything else more. I mean,
So,
Extreme X-Men is a great defense.
one more team that I'm gonna try, and I'm not sure if it's a good idea, but it interests me. I'm obsessed with
New,
Tigra,
New
and
Avengers?
one thing, when you do that matchup, a lot of times Tiger will take some damage, then go into stealth and Mockingbird's minions taunt, and a lot of times she'll be doing that alt at very low health, in stealth. So I'm
Hmm.
gonna try putting Raider on her. I'm not sure
Wow.
if that damage applies to bleeds at all, but if I can catch someone off guard and get her to do an alt with an extra 200% damage, that could wipe their whole team.
It
And
could,
just
actually.
curious to see what would happen there.
My only concern would be like their traditional counter, which I'm sure you know of, which is the Eternals. So that may just invalidate that if they get around to that. So I'm not entirely sure on that. Unless you're using the
Yep,
Nick Fury version, I suppose, which then like gets Coulson to go or whatever, and maybe there's some value there. But I never really put a lot of resources into like Coulson to like make him some sort of mega powerhouse.
right.
I never did that myself. Some people have though. I've met them in Crucible. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
I know you're going to turtle your Crucible for the week. So if you see anything really good in your experimentation, let me know. Even if you're not
Yeah, will
playing,
do.
just do that and just send me the data. So let's talk about room 2. So this is Mystic Healthcare. This is you gain for specifically Mystic characters, they gain 20% drain per negative effect. Now, I think this is on them, but I'm not 100% sure, or if it's on the enemy. Who's actually
I
getting
assumed it's on your own characters, but not
Yeah,
positive.
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't worded the best. I feel like they could have clarified this a little bit, maybe with the wording. But yeah, I guess we'll go with that is your character. So if your characters have these 4 deep, and it's very specific, bleed offense. It's not all of them, right? It's not defense down. It's not slow. So they're missing a few, but bleed offense down, trauma and disrupted. So I don't know what this is intended for. I don't know why they chose those ones exactly. But, Darkhold is a very common defense, and they do, I think, some degree of these. I don't think they bleed, but they do trauma with Dorm, anyways. And then there's offense down from Agatha. Honestly, I think there's some disrupt from Morgan Le Fay. I'm just doing this because this is one of the most common defenses that I could think of, and hoping for the best on this one. But
Yeah,
it's not my
and
favorite room,
Mystic.
though.
I
Um,
agree. I think just putting, some of the strongest Mystic teams in there makes sense. I think it's more gonna demand like changing who you attack with in that room and being careful, you don't want to take in a team dependent on bleeds or that
yeah.
really depends on a lot of debuffs for control. But I think just a strong Mystic team in there is the right play.
I think Darkhold would, because they hold up pretty well, like their health and stuff like that, and their barrier. So if they do happen to have all that kind of drain, that could get pretty rough, especially with Morgan Le Fay and things like that. Like basically getting all our health back again. So if that ends up happening, so we'll just have to see about that one, I suppose. I'm almost thinking like if this is designed to be like anti hive mind on the offense. Like if you use hive mind in this room on the offense, you're because they do a lot of bleeds for sure, and Venom does offense down and things like that. And I think you can get a disrupt, or at least you can flip things with Void Knight as well. So I'm wondering if this is just like don't use hive mind here. I don't know,
Yeah, don't use Robbie there.
something
Definitely a
like
couple
that.
characters that would really enable that room.
So let's move on to yeah. Again, it's not a crazy room. We'll see what other people end up showing up, and also for anyone watching this, feel free to let me know in the comments down below if you have something else that you are gonna plan to put on there. Obviously I don't know everything, so I would love to know what you guys are planning as well. Number 3, when it rains. Now this was a thing for the scourges. This was a scourge when it rains.
Mhm.
When a positive effect is applied, they get +1 duration to all their positive effects, and then same thing for the negative effects, just +1 on the debuffs. So I I don't know. Again, I think the Secret Defenders scroll is still a very powerful defensive team lineup. I think one thing that we might start seeing in about a week is Black Knight, and I have Doom there, but I think that maybe next Friday we're going to start seeing Black Knight defenses here with the same getup. But I decided to go with this because of all of the defensive buffs they can apply. Secret Defenders get safeguard, things like that, and then we know the scroll with a special, gets a whole crap ton of buffs, and then his own safeguard too, which will all get extended. So, thoughts?
Yeah, that defense you had looks very similar to what I'm planning there too. I didn't have Doom, which I think is interesting and definitely a wild card to get such a strong defense. Like, who are you going to control? Where are you going to start? Right. So I think that'll be good. But the room rule is interesting. It never seemed to change the scourges to me that much.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, it would extend effects, but the matches still played out mostly the same. So I think, another strong team in there, one that can leverage that, but it's not going to really change the match completely.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this is just what I used from season 5, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because it was a good team, right? Like it would net a 2 tap usually, something like that. Maybe if they got really unlucky, which they did sometimes with Doom, it was a 3 tap. And so I guess if that happens the same way, then that's a win for me. It may not change the matchup that much, but it's still a pretty solid defense, and I think that's worth using in my opinion. I don't know if there's a lot of teams where it would make or break the fight, honestly, having a +1, because if you can already do it, I don't see what the difference of an extra turn will make, if that makes sense. Right? Like
I agree.
if it counters that, then it's gonna counter it anyways, you know?
90% of the time, these matches are already decided, by the time that extra turn would really make a difference.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm like I think that if you can already do it, that's probably not gonna make a difference. Well, we'll find out. Maybe I'm wrong though. So let me know if you think I'm wrong and what you want to do in the comments down below. I realize that we haven't talked a lot about symbiotes and Superior 6 because we're gonna get to that probably more on this side. So don't worry, everyone, when we get to room 5 and 6. I want to talk about this room 4 because we talked about this beforehand. This is where you make the shocked face because oh my god, Pegasus. So let's talk about Pegasus first. Pegasus in season 5 was pretty easy to counter, right? Like it was you'd have Eternals. I don't know who came up with the original idea, if there is a person who came up with the original idea, but anyways, you shared with me Eternals, Falcon, Omega Red, and Shang-Chi. Very easy to just wipe them out without them taking a turn, right?
Yeah, and low value tunes, who's using Falcon and Shang-Chi still? I didn't come up with that. I did see it, but have shared it because it was such an efficient automatic win counter. They didn't take a turn.
And now we have to talk about this room 4 because we were both talking about it and like, oh my god, it might actually do a lot of work here. Because Eternals is so commonly used to beat them, what happens? Ultimate abilities cost 3 more. No more. You gain the turn bar rewind from the Eternals, all the flipping because they got a crap ton of buffs, right? You're not doing any of that. And the Eternals are basically dead in the water without their ult. That's what they do, right? That's like 90% of their turn 1, and without that. So this is pretty crazy, I think. They all got really good specials here, I think. And in fact, they would probably I mean, they wouldn't lead with it necessarily, but actually having Kestrel lead with a special, I think is pretty good because her special is very strong. And so
Yeah.
oftentimes when you're playing Pegasus on offense, you want Kestrel the special, usually. So I think this is a great idea to have all these characters special because they won't have their ultimate ready right away. But Pegasus also does have that ability energy generation mechanic through their basic. So if Kestrel's able to land some vulnerabilities with the Raider, and then other character, I have to change the ISs around probably. But if you land some striker attacks, they're going to chuck out ability energy to everyone else. And even one person doing that, it's a +1 energy to the. So everyone's going to get 2 energy, because I think it's +1 to the entire team when somebody does it. It's going to be +2 to the entire team, and that's going to get them back up to their ult.
Yeah, and once they get going and rolling, it is a extremely hard team.
I might have to build this
So
team bigger.
so, people didn't see this, but before we started and Boilon showed that, I've always been very anti-Pegasus on defense. They're a great team, but just because they are so easy to have that low value counter, and he was like, "Oh, touche, KT. In actuality, the Eternals will not be able to ult," and just my head exploded, and I think it's great to try. Like, there may be another counter that comes up, but,
There
I think
probably
it's
will.
genius.
But
I like it.
I think a lot of people will default to this. Some people may actually accidentally use Eternals in here and just forget what the room was, and then they're like, "Oh shit, we can't do our ult," and so I'll get that free the combat cancel or whatever, right? And so even that could give me a win, especially in the first week. So I think you're right. There probably will eventually come up with a different counter or a better counter, but in the beginning, I think this could have some pretty good value. And as I just think that we're going to be losing teams like you guys might have noticed in here. I don't have Gamma. I don't have Death Seed because I feel like they're just so super easily countered by other teams. Namely, Pegasus beats Death Seed really easily. New Warriors beats Gamma very easily, and I don't know if they really have a place on defense anymore. At least in my lineup, anyways. So I guess I'm just trying something a little bit different this time around. Maybe I'll use Red Hulk standalone on offense. I'm not sure, but otherwise, it just seems like they're being kicked to the curb. They're too old now, or they just don't hold.
Yeah,
Because
I agree.
Crucible's not their mode, right? So I don't know.
Hitting that point.
Yeah. If anyone else has a better idea for spiritual energy, the other thing was that the only energy battery characters I could think of that might hold up, like as in not die right out of the gate, is Shuri. And I think some people are planning on doing that. I've seen other creators as well talk about using Shuri here. But and I have a G16 Shuri. I just don't know if it's going to really do a lot. You also can't control who the energy goes to. It doesn't give it to everyone. So, I think it's was it 2, maybe 3 characters at most. And so you're not necessarily always going to get it to the character who needs it for their ultimate. And so that's what I don't like about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a smart play. It definitely will catch people off guard until something new's learned in a few weeks.
We talked about this briefly before the video. I'm not going to do it myself, but we talked about this sort of SD scroll with Thanos. I know that you were saying like, maybe it might not work, but if you were to put Thanos on the edge next to Skrull, and then Skrull, is going to get fed energy if he kills people in room 4. Anyways, you might be able to do something like that. I'm not going to test that right away, but it might be something because you said it does it makes it a lot harder to do the burn attack on it because he's just going to get his energy back or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
Thanos will stop the Minerva tech stack, so that's value there. And I do think it's interesting. I know my hesitation to you was Scroll's ult so powerful, like that being dependent on killing someone, especially when you're not controlling the team on defense. But
yeah,
it may very well be great.
yeah. I,
Time
I
will
mean, I mean
tell.
that might be something that if things don't pan out here and I'm not getting the results that I want, and or Pegasus, or people found it like a new, real easy way to wipe out Pegasus, I might end up trying it over here in room 4 and then putting Thanos in and see what happens, just for experimentation purposes, I guess, because I think that's a lot of what the first 2 weeks are as well. Is just kind of seeing like, yeah, I think this would do really well, but as far as the efficiency score goes with time, things like that, like, is it getting me that much value? If they're clearing it in like two rounds, right? Or 2 rounds of turns, then that's not very good. I want to stall as much as possible. So we'll see about that, I guess. Let's
You know,
talk about.
one
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, real quick, just one last quick thought on 4. And this could be a horrible idea, but if that doesn't work for you, it might be interesting to try Gamma in that room, because the new
Mm,
Warriors kind of the same thought with Eternals, but Firestar wouldn't be able to ult, which is what makes that so automatic.
oh, you know
And so
what?
that would play out different. And then when Red Hulk gets popped, would everyone get a
Yeah.
lot of energy?
No, well, no, because he doesn't give the energy to everyone. He would get +3.
Okay,
It's
so
not
he'd
giving it to
just get
everyone. It's
extra,
just
but
it's just that person who gets the energy is getting more. So yeah, you're right. Actually, there could be, because without the alt, there's no necessarily. I don't think that Deathpool could alt maybe not by that
Yeah,
point.
normally you do the death pool special, but Firestar wouldn't be able to alt, so the trauma wouldn't go out. All those bleeds that then get spread around
Yeah.
wouldn't go out. Like that just would not be the
Which, yeah,
same
you're right.
counter at
So
all.
this could. I'm gonna try this for first, and then I may end up going back to a gamma defense as well. We'll have to see. I think you're right. It's gonna make that. There are other counters to gamma though, so you might be able to wiggle around and do something differently. And I think this is where you're gonna have to be really conscious about who you're using on offense to make sure you don't get screwed yourself by using
Exactly.
characters that are very reliant on their ultimate. I think
Exactly.
this could actually make or break your Crucible if you go in with the wrong team, and then you're like, oh, I can't ult.
Yeah,
So
it'll
I
happen.
think this might actually be the most exciting room after I was thinking that this might actually be pretty boring, but now I've had some more time to think about it. So we'll see. Let's move into room 5. This is Robotic Double. I kind of found this room a little boring. So whenever a tech character uses an ultimate ability, revive a tech character at 100% health. Only reason for that is there's only like a handful of like meta tech characters at this point. Do not use Pegasus in room 5. It's not going to matter. Everything we just talked about how easy Pegasus is to beat, it's just the same here. Like you're going to use the same Eternals counter. It's not going to have any value. Don't do that. Okay,
Yeah, they don't take a turn, so it doesn't matter what happens when they
yeah.
alt. So
But as
agreed.
far as other tech characters go, I mean, you have Superior 6 or Sinister 6 anyways, with a lot of tech characters, depending on how many you're using. If you're using Mysterio necessarily or Vulture or things like that, there's a lot of tech characters. There's 3 just here right now. This isn't necessarily what I'm going to use, but if we look at all the other tech characters, right, it's just, and once I get there, so many traits that there's not a lot of like highly meta characters I would think that you would want to put on defense, right? Like Spider-Man big time. Sinister Six, Kang, which is not a defensive character, and Bionic Avengers, and Shuri. So like, yeah, there's like not really. It's really just Sinister Six at this point. So I think this is a real shoe in for Superior Six defense, but I'm not doing that because I want them for offense. They're such a strong offensive team.
Completely agree. It's going to be a huge wall on defense in that room if he'll put Superior Six, but it is a trade off, and a
Yeah.
lot of people rely on them for offense. And I agree with you. I don't think I tried to think like, is there a way to piece together, a Doom, a Kang, like some of the meta tech characters, and nothing that made sense to me. Maybe something will come up, but you don't want someone that alts right off the bat because no one would be dead. You get no value from that, and then you don't really control the timing of those things as much on defense. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a nice to have. I think it would make Superior Six better in that room with that rule, but it's not. I don't really see any other uses of it really.
I do want to expand. I want to use, and I probably should have said this earlier when we were talking about Dorm because of the whole Revive Once function that we are getting with the season right now with Symbiotic 6, or in this instance, symbiote characters are Sinister and Superior 6, and therefore down below, when successfully attacked, remove Revive Once from the attacker. So what this really means is that it's the reverse of last season. So instead of you hitting the enemies, they have to hit you. And by you, I mean other symbiotes or Sinister Six characters, essentially. They have to get hit, and then they will try to strip that off. So I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, if they use a mixed hybrid of either Sinister Six, well, they're probably not going to use Sinister Six here because they'll probably try to use it here. But if they use symbiotes here and can beat me, then that's going to strip the revive once because my characters are going to hit them, right? And so I just thought about that as well. But we'll see how it goes without Red Goblin. Well, sorry, paid Red Goblin is out. Free to play Red Goblin is not. So we'll see how people end up doing on that first week utilizing Red Goblin. And I really want to talk about Hive Mind, and I don't know if you've really put much thought about into this, and so I don't know. Did you? I know because you're leaving, right? Like I don't know if you really invested a ton into your Hive Mind, but
Yeah, I haven't studied it maybe as much as I would have otherwise. I do have a G18 Gwynnum and I'm spaced at the other new guy. I don't have the new Red Goblin.
Red Goblin, yeah,
Um, but I think they're going to be a powerful team. And Boilon, I think every season has like an inflection point in a dynamic that's most important. I think this season's is going to be how well you can use those Hive Mind characters with the overall Sinister Six, not just Superior, but the other Sinister Six characters too. And figuring out how to really optimize that's going to be so important this season.
I want to talk about one lineup that I'm thinking about doing, but I can't do it yet because I don't have Red Goblin. is this right here. I'm thinking of making a Hive Mind Sinister 6 slash Superior 6 defensive wall because all the Hive Mind characters are going to be both tags, Doc Ock buffs, both tags, and all of that. So any passes from these characters are going to get shared over to the symbiotes. Red Goblin's going to go here. For those of you who have read up on Red Goblin's kit, he spawns with 1 charge and he'll revive a Hive Mind ally when they die on his turn. And he typically puts taunt on characters with the highest hit points of Hive Mind. So that's going to be like Venom or Void Knight. And my idea is that when Doc Ock uses a special, it's going to give +3 charges to Red Goblin. And that means he's going to revive 3 more times. And so I'm trying to make some giant ass defensive wall where it just slows them down and they're having to fight it and they're getting really annoyed and they're losing time turn efficiency because they're having to like kill a bunch of people. And that's just kind of workshopped in my head. But I need Red Goblin to do it. So I don't know how it's going to work out. Lizard's here just to be more of a pain in the dick to, like add more taunting and stuff.
I love the idea. You'd mentioned that to me like a week ago with Doc Ock and the Chargeable Sin 6. It could be fun. It's going to be an efficiency nightmare. And Lizard is like that guy is amazing how much he can just take hits. So if the new Goblin does get those charges like you said, has all those revives, that could be really interesting. I wouldn't know what to use off the top of my head.
If I'm super lucky and I actually am able to get Shocker out and he's able to take a turn, he's also going to get the ultimate, which is the turn bar rewind. That'd be really nice. I don't know if I'll get there, but I don't want to add Carnage and Gwenom because they have low hit points. Even though I have a 2 diamond Carnage, that like they're not gonna Carnage, if he uses a special, it's gonna strip buffs. It's strip debuffs. It's not the same as raids, so whereas it doesn't do that. And so I don't really like Carnage on an AI sense. And I'm not really there to do damage. I'm just there to kind of make them take longer to kill me. And so I don't really care about like kind of Carnage's mechanic with the speed bar because I don't expect them to do a shit ton of damage. I'm just expecting them to kind of like take forever to kill. And that's why I'm not putting Gwenom. She's too low. Even at G18, her health is like 1 million, so it's not enough. Red Goblin could be kind of squishy, but he is a protector character. I forgot how high his hit points is. I'm hoping the rest of them, because you're going to get the health passive as well from Doc Ock, which is going to spread to the rest of them.
Yeah, Doc Ock's so survivable. Lizard is, and Void Knight does some crazy things. You may get lucky, even though I agree it's more defensive based. But Void Knight pulls everyone together. Venom does, and all that spreads all kinds of negative effects, and could still be some power there.
I might do this for just now because I don't have Red Goblin, so I want to move into Red Goblin, but I need that Superior 6/4 offense, and I'll probably replace Doc Ock with Spider Slayer. So that's why I might not need Doc Ock. For those of you who have done the counter against Extreme X-Men using Superior 6, Doc Ock takes like 1 turn, and honestly, it doesn't really make much of a difference. Most people would prefer to use Spider. If you use Spider Slayer, it's actually a bit easier, I think, in my opinion, as long as he's built. So that's kind of my plan there for that one. But yeah, fortunately, you're not going to be around to see some of these results. But maybe you can just like put some stuff on defense and then share with me results, and then so I can talk about it in the video.
I'm staying around another week to help my line, so happy to do that. And I'll definitely be spying on all these videos still, and staying up on what's going on. I'll be curious.
Now, finally, we have room number 6, health insurance. I don't know if there's a lot to talk about in this one, honestly, because I feel like this is like the Infinity Watch room, honestly, for a lot of people who have Infinity Watch. And the funny thing is, it actually makes me want to build up mine now a little bit more. Maybe I should G16 them or something a little bit more, because it's shocking how much defensive value they've continued to have. And now they're not going to have the same sort of, before I used to just use solo Lizard against Infinity Watch in the previous season to just clear the revive onces of Gamora, Adam Warlock, and Nebula. Just the AoE from Lizard would just go and remove that. I always use Lizard here. But you're not really, you could do that still, but they would have to hit Lizard in order to, maybe. It might still be valid if you're not using Lizard anywhere else. But this seems to be like the Infinity Watch room, because you can't heal. With Safeguard up, it actually doesn't strip the buffs for the healing. So it's basically a normal Infinity Watch here.
Well, and I was going to ask that if you knew, like, obviously it won't remove the buffs, but it doesn't give the healing though.
No, I don't think so, because you're not actually removing anything.
Yeah, makes sense. I agree with you. I think the lizard thing, it still will get those revives off, but it's not as controlled, not as intentional as it was last season.
Yeah.
So Infinity Watch, man, I made a video like 3 months ago saying they were finally gone and this was the end, and here they are. Like they're still really good and just an efficiency killer.
Well, I mean, so I hate it honestly because like I was saying Infinity Watch is dead like 9 months ago. I said it a long time ago. And I was like the only reason why anyone's using them, to be honest, it's a defensive capacity. They're not super stellar still on offense, in my opinion. Like they're super slow. Sometimes I don't think they can really kill a lot of like meta defense teams in war or anything like that anymore. Like they're pretty outdated. But just because they have that spawn safeguard immunity combo is what's triggering this sort of wall from turn efficiency. And that's it. That's all they do. So should you build them? It depends on how much you care about Crucible. If you care about Crucible, I think that you should. But if you don't, because I don't get a ton of value out of them outside of this instance right here anymore.
Yeah, agreed. And I think with the level cap increase right now, that's a lot of priorities to level. It'd be hard to justify going back, even if you're into Crucible, but they still have a place right now.
Sadly, it's just here, I think. Like I think this is probably the best space for them. I don't know. Everyone watching, feel free to let me know what's your room 6. If you're not using Infinity Watch, what are you using? But I think a lot of people are going to be doing this just because it's easy. It's going to get some efficiency, or it's going to kill some efficiency. And I just honestly, these are the 3 staples between Infinity Watch, between Darkhold and X-Men. These are the 3 like huge defensive staples. I think that's all going to be almost on everyone's Crucible defense, just because I don't know if they're as quick at killing on offense. So a lot of people, because they're not as super damage heavy, so a lot of people just put them on defense because they still will do that for your team, at least get you some points.
Yeah, and I think Infinity Watch is good in 6, and like you said with those rules, it's not just really that big of a game changer. So another solid defense, like that's a place you could throw Gamma,
Yeah.
throw a new Avengers, throw just defenses like that. They're kind of your lower defensive tiers.
Well, see, I want to talk about the teams that I kind of have left that I'm not sure I'll be getting around to using on offense, which is going to be teams like Gamma and Death Seed. Off the top of my head, those are 2, and New Avengers actually as well. So I was using them a little bit in season 5, and now I don't know if I have a space for them necessarily. And I'm trying to think. We talked about possibly putting Gamma in here at 4, and I might do that depending on how this turns out in the first week. I might swap them out for Gamma and then have Pegasus on the offense because they're a pretty good team. I think there's probably going to be room for either Kestrel by herself or the Pegasus team to be used on offense. Death Seed, I don't know. I honestly don't think there's any really room here that is good for Death Seed that's going to really have any value because Pegasus just beats the crap out of them. So
Yeah, I agree. And there's new teams coming out
yeah.
pretty frequently, and some of these are going to fall off. And especially this season, you have all that reworked Sinister Six dynamic still getting the extra buffs in Crucible, and then now another new team, Hive Mind, that's going to get those same extra buffs. So those are almost automatic uses, and it's going to kick some of those other teams out.
There is one thing that I want to get your opinion of on Room 4. So, because I was talking about New Avengers and we were talking about Eternals, Eternals is a very common counter to New Avengers. Would there be any value here with New Avengers defense if they can only use their special? Trying to think of their specials, right? Because they're not going to be able to use their ultimate. Do they generate ability energy for themselves at all? Their team? Does Mockingbird do that at all?
I'd have to double check.
I think
I
they
don't
might.
remember that
Oh my
being
god,
critical off
I
the
should
top
have
of
thought
my
about
head.
this. This is the last thing that I want to talk about before we actually end the video because I thought that Mockingbird did actually generate energy for the team. I just don't know on what skill it is. And the reason why I say this is because if you can avoid that common Eternals counter, which again is a counter for Pegasus, right? Then maybe a big New Avengers might actually have some value here on the defense in 4 as well, if you're not wanting to put your Pegasus up there.
Yeah,
I
same
think they
rationale.
might.
That
There
makes a
is.
ton of
There
sense.
is. The special. The Mockingbird special. Generate 1 ability energy for new Avenger allies that were not full at the start of the turn. So that's going to generate 2 for the whole
On the
team,
special.
which she's going to do on turn 1.
Yeah.
Which she probably will get to do because Eternals cannot do their alt.
I'll say Tiger doesn't ult till turn 2.
Mm,
If it takes 3 more and Mockingbird gives her 2, that means
yeah.
Tiger is
Does
gonna have
anyone?
an extra turn before ulting.
That's true. What if you? But if you use Nick Fury instead of the thing, then he has ability energy mechanics in his kit for crits and things like that with Coulson, right?
Yeah.
So maybe, or he'll give it to certain people anyways.
I think it's really
Yeah, Nick
interesting.
Fury, Nick Fury, New Avengers might hear a turn in room 4 because Eternals
Yeah.
won't be able to rip them a new one.
And I'll say I've seen a lot of people, more recently against bigger new Avengers using MOE instead. But you're gonna have the same thing, you know, King's ult won't be ready what it normally is. So that could be
Wait,
something,
wait,
Boilon.
wait,
That's
wait, 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 wait,
interesting.
wait. So Nick Fury will lead with this special, which is normally what offensive players would do, but he's going to do that on the defense because he can't summon his minions in room 4. So now everyone else is going to get the speed up.
Wow.
Does that change the new Avengers, the speed lineup and all that? Because they're all going to have speed up.
Well, I know we've talked about that ad nauseum with Eternals, but
I
haven't
know.
been able to test that specifically.
So
But you may be on something.
maybe you should put them here and tell me how it goes. Do Nick Fury New Avengers in room 4. Put it here. Tell me how it goes, and then we'll find out how my Pegasus goes, and then we'll see who the better team is.
I will change it tonight, and I'll love it. And stop giving me things that I'm gonna care
Yeah,
about this game more.
I know.
So
I just thought about that at the last minute, and now I just pushed the video like 4 more minutes. But that was just one thing. I was like, because New Avengers, I really wanted to get some extra value out of them because I did build them pretty big, and I was like, what can I do? Can I actually do anything? And maybe you might there with Nick Fury, New Avengers, get rid of thing.
I'll do it. I like
Yeah.
it.
So that's my final thoughts. Do you have any final thoughts? That was a big one for me, but yeah, I just really wanted to bring that out for both of us.
Yeah, I think this looks like a fun season. I thought
It's room
these
4.
room changes were pretty cool. Kind of gave some variability, but not a whole makeover of Crucible by any means. So I think you have a good starting point there.
I
Pretty
think this is the
impressed.
most
And
exciting room actually.
yeah,
Because some of the
I
other ones were
agree.
kind of boring. I'm like, wow, there's actually a lot. There's more uses for this room than I thought. At the beginning, I was like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. And now I'm like, New Avengers, Pegasus, maybe Gamma as well. Because if you're thinking about their normal counter, right? And that's what you want to think about is like their traditional counter and what happens when they don't have their ult. So,
Exactly. And that's kind of a new way of thinking about it, right? That's pretty
uh,
fun.
all right. I think that's it. It's been 36 minutes, 37 minutes, a little bit over, but that's okay. I really enjoyed the conversation. Guess I don't need to plug your channel anymore. It feels so bad. Normally I'm like follow the KT Gangsta KT in the description down below, but there's probably not going to be much stuff going out right now, so I won't say it this time. But
Yeah, I'll say you've done so much to support me, and also wanted to thank your audience. When I'm on your videos, I definitely stalk the comments a little bit, and always makes my day when I see people enjoying the collab. So this has meant a lot to me. It's been a ton of fun, and thanks for having me one last time here.
yeah, thanks for coming on again, and I'm sure we'll chat on Discord and stuff as well. So bye for the YouTube audience for now. But otherwise, thanks for coming around, everybody, watching the video who made it this far, and until next time. Stay safe and healthy. And I haven't been feeling very well, actually. So, yes, definitely stay healthy. It's important. I'll see y'all later. I'm going to say Boilon signing out because, fortunately, we might not see Gangsta anymore. But that's okay. Have a great weekend,
See you guys.
everybody.